we are going to learn about the void type. So let me just write it here, and I'm just going to say, you know that some functions actually don't return anything. They are simply printing something or doing just some job, and they're not returning something. Okay, so for those cases we actually say they are returning nothing. That means void. Okay, that means they are not returning anything. Okay, so I'll just say my func. Suppose I have a function named as my func. You can do it for arrow function also, and I'm just saying that it's returning nothing. Okay, it returns nothing. Okay, so I'll just say console.log hello world. Okay, and here I just say that this function actually returns nothing. Suppose if I say this function returns a number, that means I am expecting that this function must return a number. So I'll just say return 10. So now you can see it's fine, it's returning a number. Instead you can return some solution in the form of number, it's fine. But if I say it's returning nothing, void, that means you can't provide return. So you can see you can't provide return. So if it's returning nothing, then you can simply write it as void. That's it. Okay, so that's how these functions work with the void. And now after this we have null and undefined values also. So I hope everyone knows the difference between null and undefined. Null simply means that you have defined the variable but you didn't provide it any value. Undefined simply means you are not defining the variable. Okay, you are not defining the variable. So if you try to print undefined value, you will get undefined, that means no value. If you try to print null value, it would at least give you null. Okay, null means it's not zero, but yeah, it's like no value, it's no value. Okay, it's there but it's no value. Undefined simply means it's not there and it's not a value. Okay, so undefined is just like nothing. Okay, it doesn't exist. Null value means it exists but its value is nothing. Okay, it's like that. So I would just say let I'll just say null value, and it's actually you are assigning some variable a null value. That's it. And similarly we have some undefined value named variable, and I'm just saying its value would be undefined, its type would be undefined. That's how it actually works. Okay, so very useful. Suppose in future if you provide this some value, so obviously it would be not getting that value. Okay, so if you try to give it some value, for example, you can see it's giving me problems. If you try to give it some value, it's giving me problem because I'm just saying it would always be null. It can't be changed, right? That's how it actually works, right? So guys, I hope you understood the null and undefined. And now after this, similarly we can define types for objects. Okay, so suppose you have an object. So like for example, you just have an object user, and I'm just saying my object would be name and age. Okay, name and age. So here you can actually define that your variable user is of type object. So I'm just going to say my variable user is of type object. Later on if you want to change it to number, you can't change it, right? This is an object. I'm just saying user would always be an object. You can't provide a single string or a number or anything. You would always provide an object, right? That's how it works. Now after this we have one more important thing, that is type assertions. Okay, so type assertions is very important. So for example, if I give you a very great example, I'll just say for example some value, and I would just say hello world. Okay, suppose this is hello world. So I'll just say for example I want to find the length of the string. What I can do is I can easily say that obviously the length of the string would be number. Okay, length of the string would be number. So I would just say some value dot length. This is fine. This would obviously give me the string. Okay, it would always give me the length. Why? Because I'm providing the string, so it would give me the length. Okay, so if you just try to print this, so we just try to print this, and let me just try to run this. I would simply write tsc index dot ts. Okay, so you can see that it would easily run. And now if I just type node index.js, so you would see I'm getting 11. Why am I getting 11? Because the length of this is actually 11, right? Very easily. But the problem is in future, I would just close, but the problem is if in future if I just make it some number, for example 1 2 3 4, what would happen? And now if I try to run this again, so now if I just show you this, you can see I'm getting undefined. I must not get undefined. Why am I getting undefined? Because I'm trying to find the length of a number, which is not a valid operation. This operation is only valid for strings. So how to actually fix that? I don't want to fix anything here. I want to fix things here. I would just say some value if some value is a string, then only find the length. Okay, that's what I want to say. So I would just say here itself, I would just use type assertion. That means I would just write some value as string. That means I would just say some value would be string, then find the length. Okay, that's what I want. Okay, so now again, if I try to do the same, obviously I would just check again and I would just show you. You can see obviously I'm getting undefined, but here I have just added an assertion. I have added an assertion. That means if some value is a string, then only find the length. That's what I have said. Okay, so that's how type assertion is defined. Okay, then only it would find the length, else it would just give me undefined, right? So that's how it actually works. So now guys, after this, what we have to do is we would okay, I would just make this normal. Okay, I would just make this normal. Now if I just show you this, and now if I just show you this, you can see it's working fine, right? So now after this, we have one more thing, that is custom types. So custom types is very important when you have some kind of form data, and if you're using React.js or Next.js, you would be using type assertions, interfaces a lot. Okay, interfaces a lot. So what's exactly an interfaces? It actually allows defining of a structure of an object. That means it's like a blueprint. For example, I would just say I have a interface, our interface of person. Okay, person. I would just say I would be taking some details in my front end. It would be, suppose I would be taking name of the user, and I'm just saying name of the user must always be a string, age must always be a number, and address, if address is provided, that means address is not mandatory, but if address is provided, it must be a string. That means I'm just saying question mark simply means address is not mandatory, address is not mandatory, but if provided, it's a string, it must be a string, it must be a string, right? So now if I want to just define this, I would just simply say let user, and I would just say it must be taking types from person interface, and then you can easily define your object, you can see it's fine right now. But suppose if I remove this, you can see I'm getting an error, that is, you can see property address is missing. That means if you write it like this normally, that means everything is important, but if you write a question mark here, that means address is not important. If you write a question mark here, that means age is not important. So that's how you can actually tackle errors, right, very easily. And guys, one more thing, like for example, suppose someone has provided age in string format. Okay, in string format, like this suppose. Okay, and I want to make it pass. That means I am assuming that age can be number also or string also. Okay, age can be number also, string also. How can I fix that? So you can see right now string is not assignable. So if I want to say that age can be assigned to as number also or string also, so I would just write it like this. That means I'm just saying age can be number also or string also, right? Also you can add more fields, like for example age can be number also, string also, or boolean also, any one from these three, right? So it would work for all these three cases. If I write false, it would still work, right? That's how it actually works. That's how the interface works. It would be really helpful when you are using form data in in your code. Okay, in your front end code in Next.js or React.js, then you will be first of all defining interface like this, then you will be providing your values and sending it or receiving it from backend to front end, so that type is easily maintained, right? Type is easily maintained. That's how actually your interfaces work. Okay, now guys, we are going to, again, this term is called what? This is actually known as union types. That means you are defining one after another. That means either number, either string, either boolean. Okay, that's how it actually works. Okay, or if you want to allow it for anything, you can actually type any, very easily. Okay, so it's also fine, but yeah, for some cases you'd be using that also, the union types also, right? So now after this, I would always say acha, some people might be confused with the union type, so let me just explain that again. So I would just say, for example, let union, let me just create a variable. I'm just going to name it as union type, and I'm just saying we have a variable which can be string, number, or boolean, and its value is suppose 10. That means you have given it as a number. Now suppose if I change it to a string, it's totally fine, it's not an issue. If I suppose change it to boolean, it's totally fine. You can see all these three values are working for this. But suppose if I provide some value like an array, you try to provide a value like an array, you would just say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 9 10. You can see that I'm getting an error because here I have not allowed, an array. Suppose here I just say we have an array also. Okay, we have an array also. Array of what? Suppose an array of numbers. okay, array of numbers. So you can see I have allowed this. Okay, I have allowed this. That's how it actually works, right? So guys, I hope you understood this part.